My dad and his mistress kicked me and my mother out of Easter brunch. Until Mom revealed the prenup she just found, proving she gets everything in the divorce she filed this morning. Before we move forward, please show some love by subscribing and share your location in the comments. I love seeing where our family is watching from. I should have known something was wrong when Dad texted me at 7 a.m. on Easter Sunday. Brunch at the house. 11 sharp. Don't be late. No, Happy Easter. No warmth. Just a command. I was 23, living in my cramped studio apartment in Atlanta, working double shifts at Grady Memorial as a nursing assistant. Mom had been staying with me for the past 2 weeks, sleeping on my pull-out couch, her eyes red every morning from crying herself to sleep. She wouldn't tell me why she'd left their Buckhead mansion, just kept saying, "I needed space to think, baby girl." When we pulled up to the house I grew up in, my stomach dropped. There were cars everywhere. Dad's colleagues from his law firm, people from his country club, even his mother, Grandma Patricia, who lived in Savannah and never visited unless something major was happening. Mom gripped my hand as we walked up the stone pathway. "Eileen, whatever happens in there, I need you to stay calm," she whispered. Her voice had this edge I'd never heard before, sharp and knowing. The front door swung open before we could knock. And there she stood. Simone. Dad's associate from the firm. The woman he'd been bringing to family events for the past year, always with some excuse about mentoring or case strategy. She wore a cream silk dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent, her honey blonde locks styled perfectly. She smiled at us like she owned the place. "Happy Easter," Simone purred, blocking the doorway. "So glad you could make it." Mom's hand tightened around mine, her nails digging into my palm. I felt her body go rigid beside me. Simone stepped aside with exaggerated courtesy, gesturing us into my own childhood home like she was the hostess. The dining room was packed, at least 30 people milling around with champagne flutes and plates of food. I recognized most of them. Dad's business partners, their wives dripping in diamonds, the Johnsons from next door, even Pastor Williams from our church. Everyone turned to stare at us. Dad emerged from the crowd wearing a navy suit that made him look like he was about to argue a case in court, not host a holiday brunch. At 52, Thomas Bennett still had that commanding presence that made junior associates tremble. His salt and pepper beard was freshly trimmed, his brown skin glowing like he'd just returned from vacation. He looked happy. I hadn't seen him look genuinely happy in months. "Valerie. Eileen. You're late," he announced, loud enough for everyone to hear. He didn't hug us. Didn't even step forward. Just stood there with Simone sliding up beside him, her hand resting on his arm with practiced familiarity. I saw Mom's jaw clench. 25 years of marriage, and this man was treating her like an uninvited guest. "We're 10 minutes early, Thomas," Mom said quietly, her voice deadly calm. She'd always been soft-spoken, preferring to let Dad command the room. But something in her tone made several people stop mid-conversation. I noticed Aunt Renee in the corner, my mom's younger sister, watching with barely concealed fury. She mouthed something to me. I didn't know. Dad cleared his throat and the room fell silent. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my ears. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice," he began, his courtroom voice filling the space. "I wanted to gather our closest friends and family today because Simone and I have an announcement to make." He paused for dramatic effect and I watched Mom's face turn to stone. "Simone has agreed to be my wife. We're getting married next month." The room erupted in gasps and confused murmurs. I felt my legs go weak. Next month? But he was still married to Mom. I looked at my mother, expecting tears, expecting her to crumble. Instead, she stood perfectly still, her back straight, her expression unreadable. It was terrifying. "Congratulations, son," Grandma Patricia called out, raising her champagne glass. My grandmother, who'd helped plan my parents' wedding, who'd held Mom's hand through 2 miscarriages before I was born, was toasting my father's affair. I wanted to scream. I wanted to flip every table in this pretentious room. Thomas, Mom said quietly, but somehow her voice cut through the celebration. We're still married. Dad had the audacity to look annoyed. That's just a technicality, Valerie. The marriage has been dead for years. You've known that. Simone giggled, actually giggled, pressing her face into Dad's shoulder. Several people shifted uncomfortably, finally sensing the cruelty of this setup. This wasn't just an announcement. This was a public execution of my mother's dignity, orchestrated with witnesses to make it official, make it real, make it impossible to deny. I think it's time for you both to leave, Simone said, her voice sugary sweet but her eyes cold as ice. She dropped the pretense now, showing who she really was. This is a celebration and your negative energy is really bringing down the vibe. The audacity of this woman, who'd probably been sleeping with my father for God knows how long, telling my mother to leave her own house made my vision blur with rage. I stepped forward, my nursing scrubs still on from my morning shift. I'd rushed from to make this cursed brunch. Are you serious right now? This is my mother's house. She's lived here for 25 years. You've been playing house for what, a year? Maybe 2. My voice was shaking but I didn't care. Someone had to say something. Dad's expression hardened. Eileen, don't make this harder than it needs to be. Your mother and I will work out the details of the divorce through our lawyers. But today isn't about the past. It's about moving forward. He gestured around the room like he was giving a closing argument. Everyone here supports us. They understand that sometimes relationships run their course. Run their course. I repeated, incredulous. Dad, you brought us here on Easter, to humiliate Mom in front of everyone we know? What kind of man does that? My voice cracked on the last word. This wasn't the father who'd taught me to ride a bike, who'd stayed up helping me with chemistry homework, who'd walked me through my first heartbreak with ice cream and terrible dad jokes. The kind of man who's done living a lie, he said simply, and I saw 25 years of resentment in his eyes. Mom hadn't moved. Hadn't spoken after that one quiet question. She just stood there, her purse clutched in both hands, watching Dad and Simone like she was memorizing every detail. Her stillness was unnerving. I knew my mother. She cried during Hallmark movies, she sent thank you cards for everything, she'd never raised her voice at anyone in her life. This eerie calm was something else entirely. Valerie, did you hear what I said? Dad's voice had that edge of impatience he used with incompetent witnesses. We'd like you to leave. Both of you. This is awkward for everyone. Awkward, Mom repeated softly like she was tasting the word. Thomas, do you remember our first Easter together? 1999. We couldn't afford much, so we had gas station sandwiches in Piedmont Park. You told me that as long as we were together, every day would feel like a celebration. Her voice was steady, conversational even, but I saw something flickering in her eyes. You said I was the only woman you'd ever love. That you'd build me a castle. Protect me forever. Simone rolled her eyes. Oh God, here we go with the sad little memory lane trip. Thomas, can security escort them out? I'm so over this. Security? In our house. I looked at Dad, waiting for him to tell Simone she was out of line. But he was already pulling out his phone. Jim, yeah, I need you to come to the main house. We have a situation. He was calling the neighborhood security guard. My father was actually calling security to remove his wife and daughter from their own home. Aunt Renee suddenly appeared beside us, her face contorted with disgust. Thomas Bennett, I have known you since you were a broke law student eating ramen in Val's dorm room. This is beneath you. This is evil. She turned to address the room, her voice ringing with indignation. Y'all standing here with your champagne, celebrating this man publicly humiliating his wife? The woman who supported him through law school, who raised his child, who stood by him when his firm almost went under in 2008. You should all be ashamed. A few people had the decency to look uncomfortable. Mrs. Johnson, who Mom had helped through her own divorce 5 years ago, set down her glass and quietly moved toward the door. 2 of Dad's younger associates exchanged glances and followed. But most people stayed, their loyalty to Thomas Bennett and his money stronger than any moral compass. "Renee, this doesn't concern you," Dad said coldly. "And I'd be careful about making accusations. Defamation is a serious charge." "Defamation?" Aunt Renee laughed bitterly. "You threatening to sue me for telling the truth now? What happened to you, Thomas? When did you become this person?" Simone stepped forward, her mask of politeness completely gone. "He became the person he was always meant to be. Successful, respected, free from a wife who stopped trying years ago. Valerie let herself go. He got boring. She became invisible. Thomas deserves someone who matches his ambition." The cruelty was breathtaking. She said it like she was commenting on the weather, her words designed to wound, to destroy what little dignity Mom had left. That's when Mom finally moved. Mom reached into her purse, that oversized Michael Kors bag Dad had bought her for their 20th anniversary, and pulled out a manila envelope. Her hands were perfectly steady as she opened it, removing a thick document bound with an official-looking blue backing. "I found something interesting this morning," she said conversationally, her voice still eerily calm. "While I was packing up the rest of my things from the bedroom Thomas and I shared for 25 years. Dad's expression flickered, just for a second, from confidence to concern. "Valerie, what are you doing?" "I'm sharing some information with our guests," Mom replied, holding up the document. "Since you wanted to make everything so public, Thomas. Since you wanted witnesses." She turned to address the room and I saw my mother transform into someone I'd never seen before. Someone powerful, someone done with being small. "This is a prenuptial agreement, signed September 3, 1999, 1 week before our wedding. I'd forgotten about it until I found it this morning in a box of old papers." The room went completely silent. Dad's face had gone from brown to an ashy gray. Simone looked confused, glancing between Mom and Dad like she was trying to follow a conversation in a foreign language. "The thing about prenups," Mom continued, her voice growing stronger, "is that they protect assets in case of divorce. This particular prenup states that if the marriage ends due to infidelity on Thomas's part, I retain full ownership of all property, investments, and assets acquired during the marriage. All of it." He paused, letting that sink in. "Thomas didn't come from money. I did. My grandmother left me $2 million. We used that money as the down payment on this house, as seed money for his law firm, as investment capital for everything he has." I felt like the floor was tilting beneath me. Mom came from money? I'd grown up hearing stories about Dad's impressive rise, his self-made success, his brilliant legal mind building an empire from nothing. No one ever mentioned that Grandma Lorraine, who died when I was 5, had left Mom a fortune. No one ever told me that Mom's money had built Dad's empire. That's not how this works," Dad stammered, and for the first time in my life I saw my father flustered. "Val, we agreed that prenup was just a formality. My name is on everything. The house, the firm, the investments." "Your name is on the house because we're married," Mom interrupted, her voice cutting through his protests like a scalpel. "But according to Georgia law and this ironclad prenup that you insisted we get, do you remember that, Thomas? You said it would protect us both. Infidelity triggers a complete transfer of assets back to the primary investor." "That's me." She turned to Simone with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Did he tell you any of this? Did he mention that this house, his firm, his investment portfolio, the vacation property in Hilton Head, all of it was built on my inheritance? Simone's face had gone pale beneath her foundation. Thomas, what is she talking about? You told me you built the firm yourself. You said she was just a housewife who never contributed anything. I was a paralegal before Eileen was born, Mom said, her voice sharp now. I helped Thomas with case research for his first 5 major trials. I quit my career when he asked me to, when he said he needed me to be available for networking events, to host dinners for clients, to be the perfect lawyer's wife. There's something else everyone should know, Mom continued, and I saw her hand tremble slightly as she pulled out another document. I filed for divorce this morning. 6:47 a.m. to be exact. Judge Howard, who's an old family friend, accepted the filing personally. He reviewed the prenup, the evidence of infidelity I've been collecting for the past 8 months, and the financial records showing exactly where every penny came from. She looked directly at Dad, and I saw 25 years of silent suffering crystallize into cold fury. You're going to lose everything, Thomas. The house, the firm, the cars, the club membership, the investment accounts. All of it. The room exploded. People were shouting, champagne glasses were being set down hastily, and several of Dad's colleagues were backing away like they wanted to distance themselves from ground zero of this nuclear explosion. Grandma Patricia looked like she might faint, gripping the back of a chair for support. You can't do this, Dad said, his voice rising to a shout I'd never heard before. I built that firm. I worked 80-hour weeks. I made myself into someone important. With my money, Mom said simply. With my emotional labor. With my sacrifice. While you were building your career, I was raising our daughter alone. While you were impressing clients, I was managing the household, the finances, the social calendar that got you those clients in the first place. And while you were sleeping with your associate, she gestured at Simone, I was documenting everything. Text messages. Hotel receipts. The credit card charges you thought I didn't notice. The weekends you claimed to be at conferences but were actually in Charleston with her. I thought about all those times Dad had missed my dance recitals, my high school graduation speech, my nursing school pinning ceremony. Conference in D.C., he'd said. Important case, he'd explained. All lies. Simone was shaking now, her perfect composure completely shattered. You manipulative bitch, she spat at Mom. You waited until today? Until we'd announced our engagement? You planned this. I planned nothing, Mom said coldly. You two announced your engagement. You demanded I attend this humiliation. You tried to throw me out of my own house. I simply responded with the truth. She turned back to Dad and I saw something almost like pity cross her face. Did you really think I was too stupid to notice, Thomas? Too passive to care? I noticed everything. I just needed time to get my ducks in a row to make sure I had evidence that would hold up in court. Thank you for being so careless. Dad lunged forward and for a terrifying moment, I thought he might actually try to grab the documents from Mom's hands. But Aunt Renee stepped between them, her phone raised. I'm recording this, Thomas. Try something. Please. Give Val more evidence. This is insane. Simone shrieked, her voice shrill and desperate. Thomas, tell me she's lying. Tell me the house is yours. The firm is yours. Tell me. She grabbed his arm, shaking him, and I saw the moment realization crashed over her. She'd been sleeping with my father, had probably convinced herself she was trading up, landing a successful older man who could give her the lifestyle she wanted. She'd been after his money the whole time, and now she was learning there was no money. It was all Mom's. Get out, Dad said hoarsely, but he wasn't looking at Mom. He was looking at Simone. Get out of my house. This is your fault. You pushed me to make this public. You said, "My fault." Simone's voice hit a pitch that could shatter glass. You told me you were already divorced. The room was in chaos now. Grandma Patricia was crying, demanding to know how her son could be so stupid. Half the guests were trying to leave, creating a traffic jam at the front door. Pastor Williams was standing in the corner, shaking his head in disappointment. Mrs. Johnson came up to Mom and hugged her fiercely, whispering loud enough for everyone to hear, "You're my hero, Val." I wish I'd had the courage to do this to Brian. Dad had collapsed into a dining chair, his head in his hands. Simone was screaming at him, then at Mom, then at anyone who would listen, her carefully constructed facade obliterated. He promised me everything. He said we'd travel, that I'd never have to work again. He showed me pictures of the house in Hilton Head. She turned to Mom, mascara running down her face. You can't take everything. That's not fair. He built that firm. With my capital, Mom repeated, her voice unwavering. With my connections. Did you know my family has been friends with half the judges in Atlanta for 3 generations? Who do you think helped Thomas get his first major corporate client? It wasn't his charm. She held up the divorce filing. Judge Howard expects us in his chambers Tuesday morning for the preliminary hearing. I suggest you hire an excellent attorney, Thomas. Though I should warn you, most of the good ones in Atlanta are either my friends or have worked with my family. I found my voice finally, the shock wearing off. Mom, you've been planning this for 8 months? She'd been staying on my couch, crying every night, and I'd thought she was falling apart. But she'd been preparing for war. Baby girl, Mom said softly, meeting my eyes. Sometimes you have to let people think you're broken so they don't see you coming. Dad finally looked up, his eyes bloodshot. Valerie, please. We can work this out. I made mistakes, but we can go to counseling, we can. The desperation in his voice was pathetic. This was the man who'd terrorized opposing counsel, who'd won impossible cases through sheer intimidation. Now he was begging. No, Mom said simply. We're done. You made your choice when you brought your mistress into my home. You made your choice when you humiliated me in front of our community. You made your choice every time you lied to me, to Eileen, to everyone. She tucked the documents back into her purse. The firm's assets will be frozen as of Monday morning. I'm installing new locks on this house tomorrow. You can collect your personal belongings from the front lawn. I'll have them boxed up by tonight. You can't throw me out of my own house. Dad shouted. It's not your house, Mom said and smiled. It never was. Goodbye, Thomas. She turned and walked toward the door, her head high, her steps steady. I scrambled to follow her, Aunt Renee right behind us. The crowd parted like the Red Sea, people stepping back as if betrayal might be contagious. I heard Simone wailing behind us, heard Dad making phone calls already, probably trying to reach his lawyer. But it was Easter Sunday. No one was working. No one was going to save him. Outside, in the bright spring sunshine, Mom finally let out a long breath. Her hands were shaking now, the adrenaline wearing off. I need you to drive, she told me, handing me her keys. I think I might pass out. Mom, I said, my voice cracking. That was the most badass thing I've ever seen. She laughed, actually laughed. I've been practicing that speech for months. 3 months later, I'm sitting in the newly renovated downtown office of Bennett Financial Consulting, now solely under Mom's name. The divorce was finalized in record time once Dad realized fighting would only make things worse. He kept his personal belongings and his retirement account. Mom got everything else. The house, the firm, which she immediately restructured and rebranded, the investments, even the vintage Mercedes Dad loved. She sold that car first, donated the money to a women's shelter. Simone disappeared after the story broke in Atlanta's legal community. Last I heard she moved to Charlotte, her reputation in tatters. Dad's living in a 2-bedroom apartment in Marietta, working as a junior partner at a small firm. Poetic justice. He's right back where he started, except now he's 52 instead of 27 and everyone knows exactly what kind of man he is. Mom and Aunt Renee run the consulting firm together now, helping other women navigate divorces, particularly those involving complex assets and business holdings. I'm in my final year of nursing school, living in an actual apartment Mom helped me buy. We have dinner every Sunday, not in that Buckhead mansion which Mom sold, but in her beautiful new condo overlooking Piedmont Park. Do you ever regret it? I asked her last week. Going nuclear like that? Mom smiled, the kind of smile that reaches all the way to her eyes. Eileen, for 25 years I made myself small so Thomas could feel big. I have no regrets about finally standing tall. He squeezed my hand. And I hope you never forget what you saw that Easter Sunday. Never let anyone diminish you. Never stay silent when you deserve to be heard. I won't. Because I watched my mother turn her pain into power, her betrayal into triumph. And that's a lesson worth more than any inheritance.